Yes, everybody, welcome back to the channel. My name is Stephen Howson, and this is 5 things that we learned at the protest yesterday. Seeing as though there is no game to review, but I think what happened yesterday is an important, probably massive future point in history. I think the protest was needed. I think it was coming, and I think it's going to be a significant moment as we move forward. So let's have a conversation about it. And at number 1 then. Fans aren't having it. I think we saw thousands of fans turn up at Old Trafford yesterday to really show what they think, and I think it's extremely important that fans, us as fans, have a voice. The power that fans have when they unite is immense. It's immeasurable. A couple of weeks ago, we managed to kill off the idea of the European Super League, or at least our club's involvement in the European Super League. We did that, and actually I don't think we realise how difficult of an ask that was. As Perez has come out and said since, there were contracts signed. They wasn't just floating this as an idea. This was rubber stamped. This was done. They coordinated press releases. There was website ready to be sorted out for it. There was TV deals being bid on and everything. I thought this is so far down the line that this is happening. It didn't happen. Fans went mental and it got shut down immediately. Within 24, 36 hours, it was gone. I was so proud of us as fan base when we did that. And that's continued with the protest that we saw at Carrington. We saw a protest at Old Trafford last week, and then we saw the protest there this weekend. With United fans, obviously, it's a little bit different to what's going on at Chelsea and obviously at Manchester City. This is 16 years culmination of poor management, of disrespecting and the way that the fans have been treating. But I think it was very much a case of fans feel sidelined and railroaded and ignored by this ownership. And I think that they're saying, we're not having it. And I think the focus switched from that very first anti-ESL sort of protest, because I've seen a lot of people reporting that this is all down to the ESL. It's not all down to the ESL. It's down to how we are treated as a fan base. Football fans are so far down the pecking order. Like, I saw fans and children getting truncheoned. And no one talks about that. They talk about a policeman with a cut on his eye. There's not even any evidence to suggest that that happened at the time. And if it did happen at the time, that's an unfortunate accident. But I saw police willfully assaulting people who were doing nothing wrong. And I'm seeing so little people talk out about that, and so many people pour sympathy on a guy who had butterfly stitches over something which may or may not have even happened at the time. I find that so hard to get on board with. Fans aren't having it, and fans reached a boiling point where they said, we are not having this. And I love that. Number 2, Captains United. I thought Gary Neville was a real ambassador for Manchester United yesterday on Sky Sports, and so was Roy Keane. And it's not out today, it's going to be out tomorrow morning, but I spoke to Rio yesterday and I've spoken to him today as part of our podcast, and Rio says he stands with the fans. So that's 3 former Manchester United captains that are standing shoulder to shoulder with the fans. The fans are obviously the driving force in this, and they are the heart of the club and the heart of these protests. But I think it's monumental having former captains, former people who've lifted trophies wearing this club's crest, people who are loved and revered by the fans, standing side by side with them, supporting them. This movement is going to continue, and it's going to gain more momentum, because you've seen a lot of these protests fizzle out with condemnation, and people in the media have kind of got away with never even coming out and speaking about it. Well, the opposite has happened. People are not only speaking about it, but they're right on board with it. Number 3, media narrative. I found this really interesting over the last 24 hours to watch the media narrative, particularly in America. John Champion went on a hugely impassioned and articulate sort of rant, I would say, regarding his disdain for the American sports model, talking about discussing European football in general, but also talking about Manchester United. And he said they are clubs with beating hearts. They are not franchises. It was a real quality, heartfelt speech, which truly felt like he was speaking that as a football fan and not as a media professional. And it's honestly, if you've not found it, it's all over social media. Go find it. Now, ESPN cut his audio, and then a couple of seconds later just cut to an advert in the middle of him talking, which feels deliberate. This is against the narrative that, I think it was NBC, it might not have been ESPN, it was ESPN or NBC, whoever it was, they cut away because it did not support the narrative that they'd been talking about all day. There was very much this is just about the European Super League, completely ignoring what had gone on previously with United and the Glazers, not mentioning the 50+1 demand that we're seeing. And I found it really, really interesting to be watching. Now, contrary to absolute silencing that we saw with John Champion, Graham Souness was free to just come completely unprepared and just start bumping his gums about utter wibble. The lack of awareness he's shown shouldn't surprise anyone for a Liverpool player who ended up doing an interview with the Sun following Hillsborough. I'm disappointed no one pulled him up there and then in the studio, because he was coming out and saying United fans are just protesting because they haven't won the league in 8 years. Graham, you could not be farther from the truth. You could not be farther from the truth. Manchester United, as reigning champions in 2010, we were protesting. We just won 3 titles back-to-back. We was in between 2 Champions League finals. We were out protesting in 2010. We were out protesting in 2005. Some of us have never stopped this protest and this anti-Glazer stance. How dare you come out and say that this is on the back of 8 years of not winning the league? How is he allowed to... You know, everyone's allowed to speak. But how is he allowed to say that unchallenged? How is no one allowed to say, Graham, that's a load of old bollocks, mate. What are you talking about? Because that's exactly what it was. The media have their priorities and they have their narratives, and they already decided how this was going to play out as it unfolded. We can't let them lie to our faces and ignore it, which is why I think Jamie Carragher's getting a shout out here. Gary Neville, Jamie Carragher, Roy Keane stood up for fans yesterday. I haven't seen it, but I believe Michael Owen and Owen Hargreaves also stood up for the fans. Round of applause for everyone who's standing up for fans, because it's about time fans got treated with some dignity and respect in this game. Number 4, it worked. It did work. What did we want to achieve yesterday? Attention. Let people know we are disgruntled and we're not having this. Mission accomplished. Or step 1 accomplished. That happened. Getting the game called off, the biggest game in the English calendar, Manchester United against Liverpool, getting that game postponed for a later date. Everyone around the world is reporting on that. Everyone around the world has to report on why that has happened. Regardless of whether people have spoke positively, negatively, aggressively, passively, whatever they've come about it, whatever narrative that particular news company has stuck on it, they've had to report the facts. Manchester United fans, unhappy at the Glazer ownership, managed to get a game called off today. Those are the facts of what happened. Now, you can add your own spicy little bits to it, but that is the facts of what happened. And when you report that, you're going to draw attention to it. And that was all fans wanted. Fans feel like that we need to have a voice. And it feels like people are actually listening to us. And speaking, obviously, I interviewed the mayor of Manchester and Liverpool a couple of weeks ago. They were talking about season ticket holders being polled, almost to act as a bit of a veto. 51% of season ticket holders for any ideas to go through. Certainly, like anything that's going to be a big idea, such as the let's just sack off the Champions League and join this European Super League, which can't get relegated from. That's the sort of thing that they would have been given the right to veto on. The protest worked. It proved the power of the fans. It was international news. It's still international news 24 hours later, and I don't think it's slowing down anytime soon. This is going to rumble on and rumble on and rumble on. People can't stop talking about it. I just heard a stat that more people watched the coverage of the Manchester United protest than watched the 2 games previously on Sky combined. That tells me people are paying attention to this thing. Fantastic. But there's more to do. Which is why, number 5, there's more to do. This isn't the end. We've built up a head of steam. The last 2 weeks, it felt like fan action is actually going out there and getting things done. What we're doing is working. Why stop now? I seen that Must have issued a 4-point plan to Joel Glazer, and asked for his public response to that by Friday. Number 1, willingly and openly engage and promote government-initiated fan-led review of football and use this as an opportunity to rebalance the current ownership structure in favour of supporters. Number 2, immediately appoint independent directors to the board whose sole purpose is to protect the interest of the club as a football club, not its shareholders. Number 3, work with the Manchester United Supporters Trust and supporters more broadly to put in place a share scheme that is accessible to all and has the shares with the same voting rights as those held by the Glazer family. Should the appetite be there amongst fans, then you should welcome and offer no opposition to the Glazer family shareholding being reduced to minority or indeed being bought out altogether. I think that one's probably going to be tough to ask, but they've asked for it. And number 4, commit to full consultation with season ticket holders on any significant changes to the future of our club, including the competition we play in. We request a response to this 4-point plan in public and in writing by Friday. So that is what the Manchester United Supporters Trust have asked for. And I think this is the time now you push. You keep your foot to the floor and you demand change, like the Supporters Trust have just done. I don't think you're getting a reply by Friday. I certainly don't think you're getting a positive reply by Friday. And if that's the case, fine. More protests, more action. That's what's needed. The time is now to start going for it. The time is now to get behind this and enact change. I think this is the closest we've been in the last 16 years, not only to getting rid of them, even though I think that's the case. I think that's going to be a lot more difficult. But I think the 51% of season ticket holders being polled is certainly possible, if not probable, with the fact that the mayors of Manchester and Liverpool are pushing for that in Parliament. So I think that there's something fans are going to be able to do. And I think you're going to see change. I think this protest this weekend is going to make something further down the line happen. What that ends up being, I'm excited to see. But for the first time in 16 years, it actually feels like it's worth protesting. The stuff that we've seen on Twitter previously, everybody tweet at 5 minutes past 8, it's done nothing. It's done absolutely nothing. It didn't get any news. It never got people talking. This weekend, last weekend, and the European Super League stuff a couple of weeks ago has actually made change. It's actually forced people in government to say, here's what we're going to do. It's forced fans to break into the stadium in protest. There are things changing. We are no longer being ignored. But now is the time not to call it 1-0 and disappear. The time is to keep pushing and get the win. We can do this. We have to do it together. Keep fighting. Up the fucking Reds.